Wonderful things about William Haust, have to be formal also. Not only his art, but including the fact that he has been involved with AVA Gallery much longer than I have.
I can't believe it's more than 30 years.
I mean, much more than 30 years, because you just told me that you became involved with AVA when Francine Vidal was a director, and I think she lived 3-4 years before I came, or at least. So you are a veteran.
How long have you been here?
So
in this building?
In this building, we have been here 26 years, but I have been with AVA for 30 years.
So you were here at the bookstore building on the second floor.
On the second floor when AVA was located right behind the bookstore.
I had an exhibit there.
You had, I remember that.
Yeah, it was very nice.
And it was an interesting photo process.
Yes, I was doing something with photography and drawing.
Exactly. So, yeah. So anyway, it's just so wonderful that you are to follow you, and you have taken a lot of classes here, in addition to following your own career, your own teaching career at Plymouth State University. So you have been wonderful.
I tell people I love coming to take classes here because nobody knew I was a drawing teacher. I can keep that as a secret.
No, you have always been a wonderful and important part of AVA. So thank you for this wonderful exhibition and for giving it on. And I have to excuse myself and go back to the meeting. I'm sorry.
Watch the video.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Bill. It's so much appreciated.
So I'll give a little introduction.
Well, this is my family. They
don't see that, so it's mostly for the camera.
I should also say that the exhibition was hung by our wonderful director of exhibitions, Margaret Jacobs, and she's the one now to give a formal introduction of me.
Bill Haust taught for over 30 years in the Plymouth State University Art Department as Professor of Art and Education, as well as many years as a high school art teacher. Retired in 2012, he continues to teach as an adjunct instruction or education. Haust is a former Fulbright Fellow to Belgium and the Netherlands, and the recipient of numerous state, regional, and national grants for the development of arts education and pre-service art teacher education. Please join me in welcoming Bill.
Thanks, Margaret. I'm glad my family's here, and welcome to you. I will speak only to you, okay? So I won't feel nervous about talking to you.
I am new to art, and I started doing Pastel about 2 years ago.
Oh, nice.
So
good.
I am interested in whatever you have to say.
Thank you. Thank you. I thought, rather than have you sit here and I just sort of lecture in front of these, we kind of walk around.
Okay.
Would that? Can you do that, Stephanie? Mm-hmm. Okay. So why don't you come on here? Let me start here. So come on over here a second. Stand in front of it and talk about it. So what I put together here is a series of drawings over about 10 or 12 years. So this piece would be the oldest of the pieces here, and then this piece, the newest. So what I think it would be helpful is to kind of talk about my process and what I think about and what I try to do when I'm working, and then how that changed over time. That sound interesting?
Yes, you obviously worked in lots of different media.
I did, yeah. I mean, when I worked at Plymouth State, every year we would have a faculty exhibit, which was a great motivation for all the art faculty to work every summer.
Mm-hmm.
When you're teaching full time, it's really hard to be really productive. So every fall, the opening exhibition in the university gallery would be the faculty exhibit. Mm-hmm. And that would kind of be, here's what I did on my summer vacation. And it would be a good role model for the students to see that their teachers actually produced work. It was hard when I left teaching to kind of sustain that. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of years of work that I didn't put in because it was all in a different direction. And when I was doing graduate work, I was working mostly black and white, figurative kind of stuff. So this, when I talked to Benta about doing an exhibit here, I wanted to put together some kind of cohesive group of work. And hello, come on in. I'm Bill. Hi, come on, join us a little closer. I'm just kind of walking around and talking about the work. So I wanted to put together a couple dozen pieces of work that was kind of a cohesive group of work that showed the beginning of something and then a conclusion and where I want to go with that in the future. So I'll start here, and most of the work in this room is drawn from life. So setting up the easel out on the landscape or in a studio, but working directly from life. And this piece, I really like this piece, and I keep it in our house over the desk until I replace it with your grandmother's something tray. So this hung in the house, and I liked it a lot because it was a very spontaneous piece, but it was, for me, had the kind of marks that I felt really comfortable doing. So it had this kind of spontaneous approach to drawing, and it wasn't really finished or polished. I think some of the work I was doing before would be really complete, really smoothly finished, and I wanted to get away from it. And because I was working on a colored paper, I let the paper show through. So this brown color is actually colored paper, and then working darker or lighter on top, I was able to kind of create this landscape and the distance and all of that. So for me, that became kind of the departure point, and I think it was Margaret's idea to hang this piece here as kind of the first piece you see when you walk in. Let's come back and talk about these because these are more recent. But this group is this is kind of a mix of different times in working. And you can see that kind of mark that I was making, that really loose, sketchy, spontaneous mark, became fairly consistent. And again, so working directly from the landscape, working on site, trying to capture something about the light at that time. So with these pieces, I found with working directly from the landscape, set up the easel, and you work a long time to kind of capture what you want, and then when you're done, you set it aside and you move away from the landscape, and that's that. So a lot of these pieces are from that period of time, and they range in different locations. I have a whole series of pieces that I did from the time I spent in the Finger Lakes on a sabbatical. And I had a cottage to use, and I would set my easel up on the porch and kind of draw the lake as it moved and changed. So that piece, these pieces are from that time. One of the things, as when I look at this group of pieces of different approaches I had to color. And I always would start with kind of a literal use of color, right? Since I was drawing from life, I would start with the colors I saw. So in this piece, sunny day, autumn colors, a grassy kind of meadow, and I started with those colors. And what I found was working that more literal way was really difficult then to kind of go off in different tangents with color and to try to experiment more with color. And I'll show you the more recent work where I've tried to break away from that. I've always had a really uncomfortable relationship in using color. And I felt that I had to draw more literally, draw the actual colors that I was seeing. And a little less confident to kind of break out of that and try new things. I can talk about the piece over by Margaret there, The Onions. That was, for me, a kind of breakthrough piece with color. Well, I'll talk about that one in a little bit, too. So, of this group, you know, they're all, I look at them as all fairly representational. And they range from being more literal, like that piece, to more abstract, like that. And I have a whole series I call Seneca Lake Storm series. So I think that sabbatical I spent on Seneca Lake and Finger Lakes, it rained the whole time. It was windy and cloudy, and I tried to capture that with the drawing. So, you know, little glimpses of orange, red, green, but I was beginning to experiment with color. So for me, that, even though that's really different than the other pieces, that to me is kind of a interesting piece that I kind of like. So this group is kind of a collection of different periods of time. This piece I liked a lot because I was doing some things with color here. I like this section of the horizon. Like this. So that's this group. If you have any questions, let me know. Let's look at this piece with the onions. Is that going to work for you? Yeah, come on, if you don't mind coming over here. So I never really worked much from still life. Those two pieces actually came out of a class I took here at AVA with Robert Karsten, Pastel artist, incredible teacher, who really taught me to start with literal color but not be afraid to make variations on that. So even though standing a bit from a distance and looking at that, there are 4 yellow onions sitting on a neutral colored table. But if you look at it closely, you'll see pinks and greens and a whole range of colors that I started working with, and then picked it up in that piece too. So if you look at that up closer, you see there are 3 apples on a little table in front of a window, and I tried to capture the look of the view outside the window as being really diffused and really broken up. And I tried some things with color there. That turquoise color in the sky picks up a little bit in the interior of the window and even in the apples, I think. So these drawings, I'll tell you a little bit about my process if you're interested in that. Working directly from life, start right on the paper with a sketch in charcoal. So by starting with charcoal, really soft vine charcoal, I can establish composition, change it if I don't like it, wipe it out, erase it, smudge it, whatever, until I get a composition that I like, and then start working just blocking in general shapes of the composition. Probably the same with those pieces as well. I work with a variety of kinds of pastels. I like working with hard pastels as the under layer of the drawing, and then working from hard to soft. So I build up lots of layers of the pastel. And by working soft over hard, it actually sticks to the paper better. So I can build up lots and lots of layers of color. But I like starting with hard pastels first, and I don't do a lot of smudging and blending. I let the color just kind of build up itself rather than taking my hands or taking a tool and blending it really softly. So if you look more closely, you can see that. So let's see. Let's go over here to this group, because I can kind of talk a little more easily here. So this group is more recent, and I think it was actually this series of drawings here. So I tried getting away from working directly from the landscape. So my approach that I started with here was to work in a sketchbook and work on really quick little pencil sketches from life, and then just set them aside and maybe come back to them months later. So this was a series of drawings that there were more from that particular series. I worked in a studio from drawing in a sketchbook. So I was able to break away from actually working on site. And I found that what it did was opened up lots more opportunities for creative expression. So I wasn't obligated to draw what I saw in front of me. I drew what I felt I wanted to say through the drawing. So for me, that was a really big change, a really big transition. And it led to most of the drawings in this section of the gallery, except for that piece, which is there just because it looked nice on that wall. So, and then I started working small, because what I found was, working smaller, I can work faster, I can produce more pieces. And if a piece doesn't work well, I just throw it away, just set it aside, rather than feel I've got hours and hours invested into a piece and I really have to keep working on it to make it perfect. So I like this format, this really smaller format, and it really started with this series of drawings that I did from a sketch that I had made on Squam Lake with some mountains in the distance and some atmosphere and fog and all of that. And then once I was broken away from the landscape, then I could do whatever I wanted to with color, because I didn't have to look at it. So if you look at some of these drawings, there's a lot of pink in here. There's a really intense yellow. Those were never in the real landscape, but those were things that I wanted to add because the drawing asked for color. So the most recent drawings here are the 6 in this group here. So those two behind you, and these 2 are done within the last month. And these were done in the studio. I started looking at master drawings. I looked at work by various landscape artists. And I was really interested in creating a symmetrical composition. So I was able to then forget about reality, forget about the real subject matter, but to try to divide the drawing in half horizontally and create kind of symmetrical, balanced composition there. And I don't know why. It just felt like the right thing to do at that particular time. So in each of these drawings, that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm working fairly quickly. Each drawing, takes about an hour, maybe a little more. It takes about an hour to produce. And then I, set aside, pull out another piece, work, another hour on another drawing, so they kind of build that way in series. And then at the little studio I have in my house, I set them up, I just take them up to the wall and leave them there for a while and kind of leave them. Come back, change them, forget them, throw them away, add more, just kind of keep working that way. For me, that feels like a really new and comfortable way of working. So of this group, I think, for me, those two pieces are really, for me, I think the most successful pieces in the show of the new drawings. And especially the one on the right, which for me feels different than anything else I've ever done. It feels like a departure into something new. I'm not sure what. It's got a little more flatness to it than some of the other landscapes. It's dealing with positive and negative space. It's doing some things with color that I hadn't tried before. It doesn't have all that kind of detail and little marks that some of the other drawings have. So it feels different to me, and I like it a lot. And for me, that would be the piece that I'll look at for whatever comes next in the whole series of drawings. Other pieces of this little group, some of these are a little bit older. So you can see a difference. That's the two on the sides there are more of that Finger Lakes stormy sky. And the one in the middle is just a piece I really like from the Finger Lakes that I have in my house. And, I think captures that kind of cloudy, stormy sky. There's some pink and purple in the sky that I had never used before, that I kind of liked. So that's kind of an overview. I'd be happy to answer questions or talk about any particular piece.
I wasn't quite sure. Did you sketch out in nature something and then did the rest at home?
Well,
like on those two, or are those totally your imagination?
I made them up.
Okay.
I made them up, and I think because I was starting with working with this idea of symmetrical composition. This piece on the bottom here, I really liked placing an object in the center. It's something I'd never done before. You're always taught to place things off center, right?
Right.
Every teacher always says that. Yeah, with the primary subject off center. So I liked that drawing because of that. And I might have had some photographs that I was working from that I had taken. So I said, well, okay, I'm going to try to create a kind of central composition. So, I just put a mark across the paper and I let it become a kind of landscape. So this became a kind of silhouetted landscape. And if you look at it closely, there's all kinds of color in there. It has really nothing to do with the landscape. So I think I put those marks in, continued the colors into the foreground, and then kind of built a make-believe landscape in the background. So for me, those two are probably the most abstract of any of the pieces of the show. Even though I think as I get away from drawing directly from the landscape, they all become kind of abstract. And there's kind of the same with this. This is kind of the reverse of the composition. This is a symmetrical composition, but it uses the negative space as the center point. So there's kind of blue, gray, yellow. This object in the center, the negative space, becomes the centerpiece of that drawing. Questions, family?
Why pastels?
Because I always worked black and white and charcoal. I was always afraid of working in color. And color, pastel and color felt easier than painting because it just feels like painting is more permanent and more serious.
It's totally different, close by than from
Yes.
a distance.
Yeah, they really are different up close. I mean, a lot of people call pastel drawing painting. I was talking to somebody at the opening, and I said, you know, I've always wanted to be a painter. And the guy said, that glass guy from downstairs, he said, you're crazy, you're already a painter. So, that's all. Yeah.
How did you handle it in your first phase with your landscapes that you worked so long on? What did the light change do to you? Because the sun doesn't sit still.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I think as the light changed, the drawing changed. You know, it's, I wouldn't work the way Monet did, where he would, at 4 o'clock on a certain day, he'd always come back to the same drawing and work on that one because it was 4 o'clock. As the light changed, the picture changed. I know that one, the second from the left, as the shadows changed, I just changed the drawing. That's all you can really do.
But I noticed if you do pastels and you do too many layers, then it doesn't hold
It doesn't
anymore.
hold. It doesn't hold.
So how do you solve that?
Then you give up.
Okay.
Or you scrape it. You can scrape it off.
Okay.
You can sand it off. I mean, there's a lot you can do.
And do you use fixative?
No, I do not. And I learned that from a couple of different people that I studied with. Is the fixative changes the color.
That was my next
Yeah.
question.
And it doesn't change the big colors, but it changes those really subtle little things, like some of the things that you noticed in the, those would just disappear.
And how do you handle that then to bring it to the framer?
Well, I'm the framer.
Okay, thank you. Now I understand.
Another trick I learned, and you can see this is the one piece of the show that I didn't frame properly, and there's a lot of
Oh yeah.
dust that has
Oh, yeah.
collected in the corner.
Yeah.
But if you look at the other pieces, there's a slight space between the mat and the picture.
Yeah.
So in that way, the glass never touches the picture.
Yeah.
And if the dust falls, it falls down inside the frame. Which is the way I discovered Degas, Sonic, and all those incredible little tiny space. It's just the thickness of a piece of mat board.
Right.
But it's just, and it creates a nice little shadow line around the mat.
It's a little trick.
But it's tricks that you learn from different teachers. So when you cut the mat, there's a mat underneath that that's about a half an inch larger than the
Yeah.
So, my secrets. Questions?
Did you ever notice a change in the color of your work after, let's say, 5 or 10 years?
No, but no, I never really noticed. It doesn't mean it doesn't change.
I see
I
it.
think there's a little
Yeah.
space there.
Right, right.
It does.
That's where the dust
That makes
goes.
so much sense.
And
I
I
really never
after you
known.
decided not to work for nature,
Never known.
you had all those colors
Yeah.
of nature already
Oh,
in
yeah.
your veins.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Right.
So,
The first one, he didn't do like
Right, right.
That's why it's
That's
so
why
low.
it's much.
And I didn't notice that until I brought it into hanging in the gallery, but I guess driving in my car on the way over here over bumpy roads.
Right, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So that needs to be rematted.
Oh, that's very cool. I would never have known that.
If you look at
Little trick of the trade.
If you look at the way Degas never sprayed his pastels. He did these enormous pieces, the same kind of thing, because the spray changes the color. And they were probably making their own pastels at that time. It's unlikely that they would go to a store and purchase them.
Do you ever combine watercolor with pastel?
No, I never have. Watercolor is too scary for me. Someday, before I die, I'm going to learn how to really paint. I need to find a teacher. Because even though that guy says I still am a painter, I'm really not.
Did you ever try oil pastels?
Yes, I don't like them as much. They're a little too permanent for me. I mean, I love them. They're beautiful. I've worked with students with them, but no, I don't like them myself. So you've just started working with pastel?
I mean, interesting, I'm just learning to draw and other things too, so I took the class that I'm requested.
Oh, yeah.
Wow,
These incredible.
yeah, and he'll take, anybody can, or so
Yeah.
I went to a workshop. But I thought they might be a little more forgiving than transferred to watercolors. So
Well, because you can change.
but I need to take classes on drawing and also on color.
Color.
So
You
I
know-
live in the middle of Vermont, so,
Uh-huh.
so I do work here, so I come down here, but
I mean, working with color, when I was in graduate school, I worked in just black and white. I was really intimidated by color. I didn't quite know how to start. And then when I started working at Plymouth, I had to teach drawing, and I had to teach color and drawing. And I figured I better figure it out, so my students don't find out that I don't know anything. And I did a lot of research, but I just found you just do it. You just do
but
it
I do think it
intuitively.
would help to take some classes.
Well, you start by, if I'm going to do watermelon, they're going to be pink and white and green, because that's what they are. Grapes are going to be green. But then as you understand color more through experience, then you see purple, and you see yellow, and you see all those other colors with it. And, looking at a lot of artists' work too, looking really closely at other artists, give you some ideas too, because they struggle with the same thing that we do.
I'd like to learn to do some starting.
Good, good. Other questions?
Yeah, does pastel ever give you an idea to get abstract?
Just give me the idea. Well, I kind of said with those two pieces that are behind you.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I recognize it.
But to get completely abstract, no, I don't do that. I'm not sure why. I'm just not comfortable with that. It's got to have some kind of basis in real life. But if those are the direction I want to go, I could see it becoming more abstract. Do you work in pastel?
Yeah. And I wondered if you ever get a picture upside down.
I don't do that with myself, but I've done it with students, where you study the composition upside down.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that might be the first step to abstraction.
You're probably right. Well, if there are no more questions, there's wine and snacks. Help yourself.